All right, so I'm Tim. Here, Simone. Some people call me T.O. Whatever you want to call me is fine with me. This is my project. The course is called Creating in Collaboration with Nature. First I'm going to explain this art project that I've been doing. It's called the Reishi Bonsai Bowl project. And then from there, I'll just talk about the living workshop, which is essentially the flow-through system that I kind of got brought out by doing this process. And then after that, I'm going to give everybody their own little Lucky Lindsay. It's Reishi for everybody, and I'll kind of teach you how you can take care of it. They're very easy to take care of, and how you can kind of, once it grows out of this bag, how to put it into a bigger bag, how to put it into something else, something like this possibly, and how you can kind of like make your own sort of like Reishi bonsai. And after the fact, if you wanted to, you could cut this off, grind it up, you could make it into a tincture, make it into a dry powder. There's nothing gross or anything in there. Same thing with all of these. So I'm just gonna start by read pretty much like the project. Like I wrote this like 2.5 years about this project. I just finished the 100th one of these on Thursday, so it's kind of good for me to look back over this and also just kind of give you guys some stuff to kind of like ground into, because it's kind of a lot of stuff if I don't succinctly explain it first. And this is the most succinct way that I can figure out how to say it. I was trying to figure out a whole way to do the talk, and I was like, this is just easier. So, okay, so this whole project is called the Reishi Bonsai Bowl project. The purpose of this project was twofold. One was to find out what happens when we begin to look at our legacy systems and attempt to redesign them to better emulate the planet's natural systems. And second, what happens if someone simply commits to doing the same process 100 times. Even if at the beginning I don't have all the right tools, skills, or knowledge. And despite that, still commit to the process. What will be learned, what sort of improvements can be gained, and what sort of insights can be gleaned through the span of time it takes to complete this project. I've been doing this for about 2.5 years, so quite a lot. And then how will you or me as the creative change throughout this whole process in unique and interesting and unanticipated ways. And after it's complete, can I find a way to orient this all not to just benefit myself, but also like a wider community. So these are some of the questions that I'd asked myself as I embarked on the project. I come from a background of permaculture, so I kind of used the permaculture principles to kind of guide me in terms of how this kind of all came together, but it kind of just all came together kind of like intuitively, and then after the fact I was like, oh, it has this, and oh, it has this, and this. So some of the design methods that I used was pretty much like stacking functions, produce no waste, use and value renewable resources, observe and interact, catch and store energy, obtain a yield, use small and slow solutions, and there's pretty much just all the permaculture principles. So with all those in mind, I came up with this project, the Reishi Bonsai Bowl project, where I take the waste product from one system, so woodworking, and I feed that into the next system, which is essentially the mushroom farm. And then I feed it into, and then I take that waste material again, and I feed that into the next system, which is my composting system. And pretty much by doing that, I end up with like no waste and quite a lot of, I don't like using the word products, but a bunch of things. Because products means I'm selling it or whatever, and it's more just like things that just kind of come out of here that are useful for people. So, so essentially kind of what it is here, where we go?
Come back here.
So this is kind of like a shorthand way of explaining this with my own little weird
Sit down.
things. So the I just stands for input, the little square stands for a process that is happening, and the O stands for an output. Either it's a waste that's for like disposal, that you're supposed to dispose of, or it's like a usable product, so UP. So I just kind of tried to shorthand this to explain it. So so in our first system, we would start with just like raw lumber. So For this, I have a buddy who's a local arborist, and so he just gives me like kind of like offcuts of the oak logs. So I have that. So now I'm taking that, which would just get wasted, and those are my inputs. So that's my input right there, and then the process is essentially the wood turning process. So I have a wood turner, so I have a wood lathe, and I'll sit there and turn it, and then I stand in one of those blue kiddie pools. I don't know if you know, it's like the best thing I could find in order to collect all the sawdust. So what I do is I collect all the sawdust. So this bowl right here, collected all the sawdust. I'm standing in it, and then I end up with all this. So this is all my sawdust that was made from making this bowl. So I used to work as I still do, but I worked in a wood shop making custom wooden storm windows for old houses, and we ended up with a ton of waste, ton of this. And same thing in most woodworking shops. If you know anybody who's a woodworker, they're always trying to get rid of this stuff. So they're always trying to get rid of their sawdust, which just backs up. It's pain. Either they're going on Facebook and trying to get people to ideally like take it off their hands, or they're like paying somebody, or they're just like dumping it out back and let it kind of go to waste. I also grow mushrooms though, so I know that this is actually one of my main inputs that I need in order to grow mushrooms. So if you're familiar with mushroom cultivation, you need there's a common mix called like the master's mix. It's like 50% hardwood pellets or just hardwood sawdust, and 50% soy hull. And then you put those together, you get the field capacity, pressure cook it, and you get a bunch of great mushrooms. So I know that this is not a waste. So I figured, how could I feed that into the next system? So I came up with this process, mostly to see whether or not I could do it or not. It was kind of like an idea. I was curious. I didn't know, and I tried it, and then it did start working. And I just figured if I did this 100 times, I could iterate through this process, and I could, one, streamline it way down, and then also figure out what works, what doesn't work. And then at the end of it, I would at least have all this stuff, all these pieces to show, and to be able to show how this system actually does work in reality, and to have stuff that's actually grounded in reality to show people for like results, so it's not just a idea. Yeah, so did it 100 times. I actually just finished the last one the other day, so now I'm here talking, doing all this, and yeah, so that's pretty much the Reishi Bonsai Bowl project in a nutshell. Does anybody have any questions about this process or anything like that?
That's cool.
Yeah, Billy. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that was pretty much the whole process.
Oh,
It was
there's
like
a question over
I
here.
do the same thing every single time. I take note of
Never mind.
like what time it is when I'm doing it, how long it takes, what the weather's like, what the moon, what phase of the moon is, like an idea that I have going into it, idea coming out of it, any sort of weird thing that happens, so like any sort of weird synchronicities or some sort of like whatever, weird stuff that happens in the process, and then the music I listen to, and a couple other sort of things or whatever, just kind of like to ground into each one of these bowls. So each one of these bowls after the 12th or 13th one, I'll have that sort of like information with it. So yeah, so that's pretty much that. Why they are growing like this as opposed to in a typical sort of like conch form like that, like you guys might be familiar with. The reason is because there is more CO2 that builds up in these bags than there is like outside. So essentially what it is it thinks it's underground. So they all think they're underground, and so what they're trying to do is they're trying to make these little antlers in order to kind of like get themselves up through where there's going to be more oxygen and more sunlight. And so because of that, they'll orient towards a light source. Could be any light source, but I like the sun. I'm sure you guys do too, so that's what I use. So essentially how I got these all to grow in these interesting shapes is because I would orient them towards the sun, and then I would turn them over various like weeks and months. So for like a specific example, if you were to imagine, this is kind of like right in there. It's in not one of those cases. It's in a rectangular doll case that I modified by drilling a hole in the top and slapping a filter patch on. So the sun was kind of like right here. You know, what time of year? Who knows? And then after like a couple months, we decided to turn it. Now this whole thing kind of like reorients and starts growing in that direction. And then you just kind of turn it over various weeks and months. Each one takes about between like 4 to 6 months, depending on if it's like the winter time or the summertime. Warm weather, they grow a lot quicker. Cold weather, they grow a lot slower. So, yeah, that's pretty much that. I told you how about that. Yeah, so over this process, I've pretty much built this kind of system, which is the living workshop. It's a wood shop, mushroom farm, and compost facility where the waste from one system feeds as the input for the next. And it's kind of it's just a flow-through system that mimics nature. I didn't make any of this stuff up specifically. This is what nature already does. Nature's already gonna take old wood and it's gonna break it down, and the mushrooms are gonna come in and they're gonna grow stuff. Once that's done, that stuff's just going to turn back into compost. So I just took the old kind of like legacy systems of like woodworking and connected it to mushroom farming, and then connected that to composting. Just how nature does it anyways. So the idea is that we can kind of build this out, and then this can kind of serve as like an engine for like a maker space. Like I'm trying to make the next phase of this is making the first Myco maker space. So essentially it'd just be a maker space, if you guys are familiar with one of those. But it would just have these factors in it as well. And the benefits of that is that one, you're getting live stuff in there, but you're also teaching people how to build things. You know, it's an important thing with maker spaces, but also just in general, you're putting all the tools in one place so that the barrier to learn is much lower. A lot of times I do construction, I do building, I do growing. A lot of times there's people that want to learn how to do stuff, like how to learn how to use tools or things like that, but they either don't want to buy the tools or they don't have anybody to teach them, something like that. So that's where maker spaces come in handy, because that's just like a open, free, shared space that people can essentially like share knowledge amongst. So by doing that and adding this sort of living aspect to it, we can teach people how to grow, how to build things, and we can also teach them how to cycle nutrients, how nature does, and we can also teach them how to grow food, and they can also grow medicine in the form of like tinctures or dry powders from the lion's mane or from the reishi, and then also they can compost this stuff, as well as ideally other things as well. So like this would just be like the original kind of like base piece, and then it can expand out from that. We could expand out. You could also have a garden out back, and then you'd be taking your compost that you're making from this part and then feeding that into the garden. Now you're growing food as well, and it's just kind of like an engine for like a community. So the idea is to continue building this out and to document the whole process and to essentially open source it so that it's just all out there, all on the internet. And so anybody else in their own community could go online, they could take these plans and they could build this in their small community or whatnot, and then ideally they would all kind of like link up in a mycelial sort of way, and everyone would share resources and information like that. So in this process, I'll just run through kind of like all the stuff that kind of bubbles out, and then I can hand you guys out, I can take questions, and then I can hand you guys out the Reishis, and we can start kind of figuring out how to do that. So we can start. So we start with an oak log, like I was saying. I get that from my buddy, who's an arborist. And right now, for this project, we just made a bowl, but it does not need to be a bowl as long as it's with hard wood. That's the only kind of criteria. We could also make chairs, make tables, pretty much anything you can make with wood, you can make in this system. So now we have functional products, and then we end up with our waste, which is our sawdust. And in this sense, we made a living art piece, very unique. We could also take that, and we could also make it into myco materials. So something kind of more like this. This is made with hemp hurd, but it could also be with wood chips. And then we can also take that reishi and we can also tincture that, or we can do a dry powder. Now we've made essentially medicine for ourselves and for others. And we don't use all this. Well, I don't use all this sawdust for making these, so I end up with extra sawdust. So what I do with the extra sawdust, is I grow lion's mane from it. So now we can do that same thing that we did with the reishi, and we can make tinctures with it, and we can make dry powders with it. But we can also, because it's lion's mane, we also have now made a food. Not made a food. We've also now grown food for ourselves, so we can eat that, which is pretty nice. And then with the lion's mane, the blocks do not end up hard like this. These are like hard-bodied for the reishi. The lion's mane ones are much softer. So what you end up with is SMS, which is essentially just a fancy way of saying spent mushroom substrate. So it's the spent mushroom block. So we take that, and I took, I don't know if anybody's familiar with Elaine Ingram. She does like the soil food web courses. She's really good. She's really good. I took her course probably about 2.5 years ago, so I'm pretty versed in making compost. So I know that those spent mushroom substrates actually make really good compost. Really good for like building up the bulk and like biological material that's in there. So, and it just adds like a good amount of volume as well, and wood. So I know I can make compost with that, and then from there I can take that compost and I can make liquid amendments to be able to kind of feed my garden. And I can also make biocomplete compost, which is just kind of like just compost that has the correct amount of bacterial and fungal content in it. And I also have worms, so I feed some of this spent mushroom substrate to my worms. I'm pretty sure William was saying he does this as well. Yeah, and then so from there I end up with worm casings, which that gets me really good fertilizer. So now we have fertilizer as well. And also the worms kind of help me sequester some of the carbon as well. Not like a ton, but it's still doing something. So pretty much from this one oak log, we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and if you wanted to count the carbon sequestration, that'd be 12. Pretty much like 11, around 10 things that pop out of just this oak log. And the only thing that we've done is just kind of cycled these things through by pretty much just copying mimicking what nature already does so very efficiently. So a lot of times we think that we're very good and we are so smart because we make all this stuff and everything like that, and it's great and all, but if you really like start to pay attention to how nature does things, you'll realize that like she's like the most efficient engineer or whatever you want to call it around. So I just feel like this is an important thing to be doing. This is an important thing to be doing in this phase that we're kind of like, that we find ourselves in. We're at a kind of like a junction now where we can kind of either keep doing the things that we have been doing before and see how that continues to work out, or we can kind of like do kind of what we're doing here and try and imagine and try and envision new ways of doing things that are more kind of aligned with nature and kind of like how we want to be in the world. Like, do we want to live in a technocracy, or do we want to kind of like live and kind of like ground ourselves back into nature with the technology that we already have? It's not like an either or, it's like a yes and. So it's like if we can do this, then we can also have the technology stuff too, but we're at least back connected to our mother or nature, whatever you want to call it. Cool. So that's kind of pretty much, that's that whole spiel. If anybody has any questions or anything.
With this process, what waste is generated?
You kind of end up with no waste. So, yeah. So that's kind of like right up here. So we ended up cycling it, kind of like once, twice, 3 times, and then I mean our waste is pretty much we just end up with sod. We just end up with compost. So, yeah, I mean like like the waste. There is some embedded waste, like like these plastic bags. Like you can reuse mushroom bags and things like that. Like there is some sort of stuff, but in terms of the inputs that we're using, we're essentially just running them through this system, and then at the end we just get really good compost and worm casings and fertilizer and things like that. So, and also, I mean, if you're looking at it in a financial way, I guess, or whatever, like you're getting rid of having to purchase inputs because you're taking like the main input. One of the main inputs that you need to acquire in a mushroom farm is hardwood pellets, and you don't need that. So, I mean, that's not why I like it, but it is something that is interesting. So, yeah. So that's pretty much that. Like I said, I just finished this project, and this is my first time doing. Oh yes, yeah.
I remember reading a shroomery thread like maybe 3 years ago or something about somebody harvesting Ganoderma sessile off of a street tree like in the city and growing it out and being able to produce like tinctures and stuff from it. Do you think that it would behave in this way? Do you know what species you're using? Because I've always been curious to like try it with Ganoderma sessile because I know it grows around me, but
yeah. So this is all lucidium. This is all Ganoderma lucidium. I can't see. I think it would probably work the same. I haven't specifically worked with that, so I can't tell you definitively. But I think pretty much most of the Rishis would probably do that. I mean, if they're conking out, this is the reason why they do this is, like I was saying before, is there's less oxygen than what they're looking for. So they're just doing this in order to get up to where there is more oxygen. So I would think that it would probably be the same. It would probably be doing that same sort of behavior. But again, I would definitely try it. It's definitely worth a shot. Yeah. There's also Ganoderma. It's called like multiplexium or something. I'm probably butchering that, but and it's made to do this specifically. But we're not using that. Those ones. I think actually this is like number 6. So this is like the 6th one. So I did get a batch of it. So this one is that type, but all the rest are the lucidium. And yeah, so as far as I kind of started on this project, and then I figured out that nobody else has ever done this before. Kind of, as far as I can tell, there are some really cool other Reishi artists. Like there's a guy, the fungal florist. He does this stuff as well. He's really cool. He's somewhere out in the Midwest. So I mean, you can check him out. He definitely has really cool stuff. But in terms of making woodworking, and then collecting the sawdust, and then growing another piece of art out of it, I don't think that there's literally anybody else who's doing it at all. So it ended up, once I kind of realized that, I was like, I guess this is my thing to do. And yeah, and I kind of haven't been able to get away from it since because of that. So I guess it's my thing that I'm supposed to bring into the world. So that's what I'm doing, and that's why I'm currently here. So thanks for coming, and thanks for being here. If there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer it. If not, I can hand out all these Rishis, and we can start talking about how to grow your own Reishi bonsai and things like that. And also I have some shiitake plugs as well, if anybody wants any, and I can explain those if anybody needs any help with that. But yeah.